Welcome. Title of this video is going to be Full Preterism and the Nations of Matthew 25 verse 32, Jewish or Gentile. I didn't originally plan on doing a video on Matthew 25:32 as I'm currently studying the book of 1 Corinthians in general and the resurrection in particular. Also, eventually I was wanting to respond to a video by Ricky Goodall, whom I assume unwittingly misrepresented the scholarship when it comes to the historicity of Jesus. Be that as it may, I've seen a couple of preterist groups comment stating that the nations of Matthew chapter 25 are actually the tribes of Israel. And studying the Olivet Discourse in the past, I put together a number of what I would say are bullet points refuting such a notion. Point number one. Oh, let me get it up there. Okay, point number one. If the Olivet Discourse is a united prophecy, as full preterists assert, then the nations, quote unquote, ethnos of Matthew 24:7, 9, and 14 show contextually that the nations, ethnos of Matthew 25:32 are one and the same. And of course, a proper hermeneutic and how words are used is dependent upon the context, and the context leaves little doubt as to the meaning of the nations, quote unquote. We cannot dichotomize nations from Matthew 24 from Matthew 25. Now, Matthew 24, verse 7, for nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. In various places there will be famines and earthquakes. Verse 9, then they will deliver you to tribulation and will kill you, and you will be hated by all nations because of my name. Verse 14, this gospel of the kingdom will be preached to the whole world as a testimony to all the nations, ethnos, and then the end, aeon, will come. And so we see clearly in Matthew chapter 24, ethnos, nations, means just that. Not Israel, not the tribes of Israel, but the nations of the Roman Empire. Point number two, the nations that Christ told his disciples would experience the gospel preached to them would be judged on their receiving of that message. We see this clearly in Matthew chapter 25, verse 31 and following it. This judgment, how these people responded to the gospel, responded to the disciples that were sent unto them, they are judged, showing that the nations, again, of Matthew chapter 24 is identical to Matthew chapter 25. If this is a united discourse, and the full preterists will assert, yes, of course, it's united discourse, Matthew 24 and 25. There's no split whatsoever. The Greek word for nations, ethnos, is translated Gentiles, nations, heathen, and people. The meaning for ethnos is the complete opposite of what some preterists assert. Non-Jewish nations. Of course, there's maybe half a dozen exceptions out of the 164 that are found in the New Testament, but an exception does not overpower the some 150 uses of the word nations. Point number four. Many preterists, myself included, believe and have believed that the nations here mean just that, and not the tribes of Israel. Point number five. Preterists chide the futurists for ignoring how, quote, generation, unquote, is used in the New Testament, saying it means what it says. But when confronted with the overwhelming evidence that nations in Matthew chapter 25, verse 32 are nations of the world, they do what they can as the futurists to hold on desperately to their presuppositions. Point number six. The context of Matthew chapter 25, verse 32 precludes Israel from the discussion as the nations are judged as how they received the gospel that was to go to all nations, and their treating of the disciples. That is very important. Very important. Point number 7. If Jesus wanted to refer to Israel, he would have used the word, quote unquote, tribes, as he does in Matthew chapter 19, verse 28 and 24, verse 30. Point number 8. The judgment of Matthew 25, verse 31 and following is the same as Matthew chapter 16, 27, which is a judgment of every man according to his work. Point number 9, the judgment of Matthew chapter 25, 31 is the same as the great white throne judgment of Revelation 20, verse 11 and following, which is clearly a judgment of more than just Babylon, i.e. Israel, since the false prophet, i.e. Babylon, the harlot, is already in the lake of fire. So Israel is not judged right there. And we have J.S. Russell. I have J.S. Russell right here. And his comments on Matthew 25:32, he takes it as the tribes of Israel. He tries to make an exegetical case, which I think is a weak case. Then we have Milton Terry, Biblical Apocalyptics, who says the nations are actually the nations of the world. And Gary DeMar in Last Days Madness, an excellent work, follows Milton Terry, quotes Milton Terry in stating that the nations are more than just Israel. Now, I'm not saying when is this fulfilled, in 80, 70, or in the future. All I'm trying to say is that the nations here mean just that. They are the nations of the world. How the word is used predominantly, contextually in the New Testament. Okay, thank you.